Okay, hopefully that works for Sandra. But I'm thinking of the samurai and the flower, which is a story that I've told a few times before, so I'll tell it again. Sandra's heard it a few times, so it doesn't matter if she misses the beginning, and then I'll say what I've been thinking about it. So the story goes, there's a samurai who is walking around a bazaar in the desert. I think that's the original setting of this. And or not the desert, just a bazaar. And he's walking around, and there's a bunch of shops and stalls, and he's looking, and then he kind of passes through and keeps going. And as he keeps going on his path, he notices there's kind of a crowd gathering behind him of these like thieves and people who kind of look like they want to hurt him, and they're really menacing and they're picking up their speed. And so he starts walking a little faster. They start picking up the pace. There's even a big crowd of beasts gathering behind them, and there's these really angry mob forms behind him, and he starts running. And so an angry mob, I'm telling the story of the samurai and the flower. An angry mob is running behind this samurai, and he's running, 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 trying to get away, fearing for his life. He runs up this mountain, and they're chasing him. And as he gets to the top and starts to go over, he notices, okay, there's a few moments where they can't see me, right? They're on the downward slope, and I'm on a different downward slope. So he's looking around for somewhere to hide. There's nowhere to hide. There's nowhere to really take respite. There's no big trees, no big bushes, or anything like that. And so as he's running, he notices on the side of the road, on the side of this kind of like dirt mountain path, there's one really beautiful flower. And so, in this 1 second that he kind of has left to make a choice, he sits down and he just looks at the flower, and the crowd runs by. And that's the end of the story. And so, this is a Zen story that I've been told probably like 200 times. I don't know, so many times when I was a kid. And it's meant a bunch of different things to me. And I really liked it and returned to it a lot. And one meaning I've been thinking about, or thing I've been taking from it this week, I've always thought about, okay, the crowd runs by, that's the end. It doesn't say if he lives or dies. Our assumption, and my assumption that I've always been working with and that I've talked about with my teachers, is that the samurai lives. The samurai focuses on the flower, becomes, loses that like fear state, becomes really uh, calm and centered. And then when the crowd runs by, they're looking for, somebody heightened and feared and matching their energy, and they don't notice. He kind of becomes like a deer in the side view. Like he's not what they're looking for anymore. And it's kind of a story about transforming your emotions and things like that, kind of a metaphor. Um, but this week, maybe from sitting with grief and death, or from my experience working with people who are going through the dying process and helping them or working with them, I've been thinking about, what if the samurai doesn't live? What if that's the samurai's last moment? What changes for me in this story? Because I'm making the assumption that the story ends with living, but I've never made the assumption that the story ends with dying. And what does that change with for me? And in thinking of, okay, what if that was the samurai's last moment? They look at the flower, they admire it, they take that moment, and as the horde runs by, they see who they're looking for, they kill them, they keep going. I don't think I was wondering at first if the power is gone for me, if it ends in death rather than life, and if there's anything really different. And for me, what came up was, what is the samurai experiencing if that is the last moment? And I thought maybe he could be experiencing the fact that that's not his last moment at all, right? If we're thinking about what we talked about last week, breathing with the trees and recognizing the life cycle that is going on outside our physical form, taking one breath with a flower, taking a breath with a living plant is this kind of dual act of nourishment, right? Our oxygen, or we get oxygen from the plant, we breathe out what the plant breathes in, and that cycle keeps going. And so whether that samurai's human life ended there, that's not the last moment of life that that being is going to encounter. Even if, quite morbidly and literally, that samurai dies right there on the spot, that body's going to go into the earth and grow something else. It's going to transform to turn into different life. And in thinking of, okay, what if I had one moment to choose how I got to die? What if I had one moment to choose how I got to live I had one moment left and I got to choose how to spend it. Having that opportunity to kind of surrender into the moment and be at one with what's around you, to just really let whatever's happening happen, to accept the oncoming horde of whatever is coming in your life with whatever ease you can muster, whatever grace means to you and calm means to you, letting that flood your body rather than the panic, rather than the fear and the running away, but the accepting in a non-fatalist, non-nihilistic way what's happening. And so just kind of my thoughts today rather than a lesson, or not that I ever really give a lesson, but more dispersed thoughts than usual. But really, I've been thinking of this clinging to the life in stories, this clinging to the happy ending or the like, oh, there's my positive goal to move to, and stepping away from that and thinking, okay, where's the acceptance in this story? Where is the, even if it ends with death, because it always will, where do I still find the same amount of hope that I find if the story ends with, you know, a happy living or a mischievous little trick, like a lot of stories do, at least then stories. So that's my sharing for today. I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you so much for listening. We'll check in, see how your week was, how your sit was, anything on your minds. Let's see. Today we'll go in a little spiral. Let me end the recording.